Hey guys, it's Daniel and Mariah here, and today we are talking about 3 things that we refuse to do publicly in marriage.
Yeah. This is gonna get crazy. Not actually.
This is a conversation that we have a
Yeah.
lot because
It's-
we think it's kind of funny
Yeah, it's kind of like our like pet peeves
that we see other couples do.
that we
and that
we really
honestly sometimes I catch myself doing it. I'm like, stop doing it.
yeah.
Okay, so the first one is we try to avoid having disagreements publicly.
Yeah, I think that this is specifically inconsequential disagreements because we noticed early on that it's a common thing for couples to like correct each other
Yeah.
and like have full-blown like 3-minute arguments over whether they went to Disneyland in 2014 or 2015 in front of us, and it's
Yeah.
just like, oh man, that makes the other parties involved in the
Just,
conversation
like,
just so
so
uncomfortable.
awkward.
It's like, one, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
2, you can have that conversation another time. And it's
Yeah.
like, how do we respond as onlookers? Do we just watch?
Yeah.
Do we pretend that we're having our own conversation?
Yeah.
Do we go onto our phones? It just makes me feel uncomfortable.
It's just kinda like,
And it also doesn't give the image of like, oh, they're a united front.
yeah.
They're together in this.
Yeah.
They're willing to like dismiss the small blunders
Yeah.
in order to just
Or even like bigger conversation, like people can disagree about politics,
yeah.
like right in front of you, or their stance on things like right in front of you. It's just kind of like, whoa, like this is. It just,
Yeah.
like you said, it doesn't make you seem like a united front.
Yeah.
It makes it seem like something like bigger is going
And
on.
yeah, and I think that just for the record, you know this, but they
Yeah.
might not know this.
Yeah.
That I'm pretty like pro argument, especially in the context of family and marriage. I think that the home, like metaphorically, the
Yeah.
home is like a productive space to have arguments in those discussions, because I think that even like Socrates' method of education, it was characterized by argumentation, and healthy discourse, and I think that that's robbed from culture a bit.
Yeah.
So I'm not talking about dismissing arguments in general, but I'm just talking about specifically in public
Yeah.
when
In
you're with your
front of people.
spouse or your significant other arguing in front. It just doesn't need to happen.
It doesn't need to happen. Okay, what's the second
The
one?
second thing is something that we made the decision not to do early on in our relationship, like when we were dating, was venting to other people about the other. So like me venting to family or friends or coworkers about Mariah and
Yeah.
vice versa.
Yeah.
Just because I always want to protect your esteem.
Yeah.
I want to protect how people are seeing you.
Yeah.
I know that there's sometimes like small things that will irritate me, and I'll be over it by lunchtime.
Yeah.
But there's people who will hold on and almost like build up a mental grid for
Yeah.
who you are based off
Yeah.
things I've said.
Yeah.
So I want to protect you in that way. I think that there's that classic thing where family holds grudges longer than sometimes your spouse does. So I think that I even want to protect you, like your view
Yeah.
of my family, but also my family's view of you. So it's
Yeah.
just kind of like, obviously you want to still be authentic and be honest with things that you're maybe struggling, but it's just like there's certain things like, oh, Mariah keeps leaving this out, or Daniel keeps leaving this out, or he keeps forgetting to do this chore. It's like that's not really helpful.
Or it's like a passive aggressive way of like saying what you really just want to say to your spouse. Like instead of fully saying like, hey, can you please pick this up like you always leave it
Yeah.
or whatever it is. Saying to like Daniel's mom like, oh my gosh, Daniel always does this.
Yeah, yeah.
And starting venting when I know he can hear. It's just like, like there's so many things that you and your spouse
Yeah.
just need to work on, just you and them. And like obviously this isn't for people who are in like abusive situations or situations that are more serious
Yeah.
and they need to reach out to someone for help.
Yeah,
That's
like vent to a
completely
counselor
different.
if you're being abused.
Yeah.
We are like very much so for counseling.
Yeah,
and
or if you need help from a friend
Yeah.
and you're in a dangerous situation, of course,
Yeah.
reach out. But we're talking about kind of like the little things, or
Yeah.
like I don't know, even the maybe more serious problems in marriage that need to be worked out by a counselor or
Yeah.
pastor, not necessarily a friend or family member.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting how couples, especially in our parents' generation, it was like a common thing to like, oh, my husband's such a idiot, or I don't know, like, and it's just like, it's almost like this like culture around putting your spouse down, and that kind of leads us into our third point.
Yeah, the third point is something we refuse to do publicly is put our spouse down.
And this kind of goes into like jokes at the expense of the other person.
Yeah.
Like, I think that sometimes, because usually in any social setting, the closest person you are, the person you're closest to is your significant other.
Yeah.
And so it's easy. It's like, oh, this is a safe bet. So this person can be my like humorous punching bag for the night, and I'll get a cheap laugh out of people. But it's exactly that, just a cheap laugh at the expense of your significant other. Doesn't make them feel valued. Doesn't make them feel like chosen and protected.
Or like uplifted, encouraged. Like, you guys are each other's teammates. You need to be like acting like it, not like you're against each other, but you're for each other. I remember we had a friend that was attending a wedding with his wife, and another couple sitting at their table, like, the husband just kept making like really bad jokes about the wife and like her intellect and who she was, and then eventually like our friend just said to the guy, like, man, do you hate your wife, like what's going on, and kind of just like called him out on it, and the guy was kind of like, oh, what, like not used to being called out, but it's like, it's true, like really that's what you're communicating if you're continuously putting them down in public and making jokes at their expense. Right?
I remember reading something that said that the number one thing someone needs to feel in a relationship is security, like a sense of security. And I think that it's those little things that over time erode at security in a relationship. So it's so important, if you have a sense of humor, direct it towards something else other than your spouse, because at the end of the day, if it's towards your spouse, you're eroding at their value, their security, and their sense of feeling like, oh, this is my person. And I think that this whole like making jokes at the expense of someone else or putting someone down expands to like non-verbal communication as well. Because there's ways where people can non-verbally put someone down. Like if for example, I'm talking a lot, and Mariah just rolls her eyes, and everyone can see it and starts kind of. It's like that's another way of putting someone down. Or
you didn't choose me for your team, like your dodgeball team or something. That would put me down.
Did that actually happen? Okay, that felt like personal.
That was just kind of like a joke example. Like, honestly, you should choose the best players for your team, and if I'm not that, then
you would be on my team because you're fierce and you're a good athlete.
Thank you.
So.
Thank you. But yeah,
I'd choose you for the record. But yeah, so let's give them a summary.
So we refuse to disagree in public. We refuse to vent about one another to other people. And we refuse to put each other down in public.
Give us your thoughts. I think that list could have been longer.
Yeah, and like the reason why we're even saying this and putting out this video is because this is, not only do we see this as like so common in real life, but also on social media. I feel like there's always like a trending thing of like wives putting their husbands down and like making fun of them kind of. And like we just really want like to promote marriage as like life with your best friend, your number one teammate, like just such a beautiful, positive thing. Not like some negative burden you have to carry around all the time.
And I think some of us grew up seeing it, so it's been normalized. But I think that a part of us naming it too was like, okay, this isn't normal. And you're allowed to have a relationship where you don't have these things a part of your relationship.
Totally.
Where
and
you're
like,
actually uplifting each other and making each other feel protected and cared about.
And because culture is so that way and like almost like turning spouses against each other, it can be very tempting, like when the opportunity presents itself, and like, oh, everyone would laugh if I like put Daniel down right now. But like you gotta catch those moments and be like, okay, I will sacrifice being the life of the party or everyone thinking I'm funny for the sake of my marriage. And that sounds pretty dramatic, but like I just feel like it's true. Like you always have to make those little choices to choose that other person over everything else.
Yeah. Well, that's good.
Yeah.
It's good. Let's keep the conversation going. If there's any other things that you think couples should avoid doing, make sure to drop it in the comments, because we believe that the best conversation is the one that's happening in the comments, not the one that's happening here.
Yeah.
So good to have you. Remember, like and subscribe, because that's what you're supposed to do on YouTube.
Yep.
Appreciate you. Thanks for coming along for the ride.
And we will talk to you next week.